The Secret Life of a Medieval Jester. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel if you are new and leave a like on the video. Now let's start. If you think that the life of a jester in the Middle Ages was just to make people laugh, you are very wrong. They also had an important role in the daily life of the nobility and the entire kingdom. They served as trusted advisors. They participated in household chores and even followed their master into battle. They were also responsible for delivering the worst news to their noble rulers. Educated and intelligent. Highly educated and intelligent, court jesters were able to entertain their master by any means necessary. From telling stories and jokes to juggling dangerous objects and creating music through farts. These comic artists were a great source of entertainment, and as members of the royal retinue, also had significant political influence, advising their lord on all matters of the kingdom. One of the most sought-after qualities in a king's jester was the ability to make music with farts. One of the most notable for these unusual skills was Holland, the farmer. He was very famous at the English court of King Henry II in the 21st century. Every year at Christmas, his performance ended with a leap, a whistle, and a fart, all at the same time. For his work at court and professional recognition, he received a mansion in Suffolk and 30 acres of land. There was nothing stupid about being a court jester in the Middle Ages. In fact, it was often considered a respected profession. The court jester did not always wear the classic jester costume. Most of the time he wore ordinary clothes similar to those of nobles. Contrary to popular belief, a professional jester was almost always intelligent and well-educated. During the Middle Ages, kings and queens often had a strong friendship with their court jesters. As a result, they held a position of respect and recognition within the kingdom. Don't lose your head. In the Middle Ages, no one could make fun of the king or queen and expect to survive, unless they were the court jester. Most rulers found the satire of their jesters amusing. And it wasn't just the master who was the object of ridicule. The king's jester had the power to openly mock any nobleman as and when he wanted, highlighting real or invented flaws. Psychological warfare. One of the many roles of the jester on the battlefield was to tell jokes at the enemy's expense and ridicule them. This was done to boost the morale of his troops. They often walked or rode in front of the troops so that the opposing army could hear them mocking and taunting. It was a bait for the more impulsive, to make them furious and lose their concentration. The role of the battle clown in psychological warfare began the night before the battle. They performed as artists, singing, telling stories, juggling and dancing to calm the soldiers. They did much more than give advice and tell jokes. They were also messengers to the enemy army, delivering requests, terms of surrender or release of hostages. Origin of jesters. Where did court jesters come from? How did one begin working for a king? These are questions we often ask ourselves. In reality, they came from various backgrounds: nonconformist students, excommunicated monks, or servants already present at court. They were often ugly but intelligent and very witty. It was not uncommon for a king to choose a monk as a jester, since they were usually more educated than the servants. How did they start? Unlike professional jesters, amateurs often wore the classic jester costume, a hood with multiple ears, multicolored tunics, and bells attached to their shoes and clothes. Not belonging to a royal court, these amateur jesters performed at fairs, festivals, and during festivities. They danced in the streets and mounted on makeshift stages. Free-time helpers. Banquets and feasts of kings and queens did not happen every day. Therefore, jesters worked only occasionally. What did they do when there were no parties? All but the most famous performed domestic duties, tending hunting dogs, acting as negotiators, or taking care of the shopping for the royal family, servants, and army. There was no freedom of speech in the Middle Ages unless you were a respected jester. Speaking the wrong way to a nobleman or the king could lead to serious consequences. But jesters had special privileges that many did not have. Having little fear of consequences, they spoke freely and thus gained the trust of their lord by offering honest opinions on his actions and decisions. Apparently, only jesters could give advice without fear of losing their heads. He was a complete artist, a trusted advisor, a keen observer, and above all, a free voice in a world where speaking out could mean death. These characters embodied a rare balance between courage and irony, intelligence and desecration. In a time when no one could contradict a sovereign without paying a very high price, the Bobo was allowed, and sometimes even the duty, to tell the truth. And he did it with wit, sarcasm, humor, and a surprising lucidity. Because, as often happens, those who can make people laugh are also those who can see reality more clearly. Their role on the battlefield, in the court, and in the daily life of the nobles tells us a lot about how, even in the Dark Ages, there was room for critical intelligence, satire, and even a certain spirit of justice. Perhaps, precisely because they were disguised as madmen, they were the sanest of all. So if this story has touched you or made you think, I invite you to leave a comment. What aspect of the life of the Bobos surprised you the most? Did you ever expect them to be so influential? Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share this video with those who love to discover the lesser-known face of history. Every view, every share, every thought is a small piece that keeps the memory of our past alive. Thanks to everyone for the support. In a month we have become more than 2,000 in this channel. Let me know which video you would like to see next from the medieval era and beyond. Storia Vissuta was born for all history enthusiasts and curious. See you next time. Bye.